What I'm going to talk about isn't necessarily a moral panic, but specifically a controversy that once again drew the public's attention to a well known debate concerning a moral panic. That is, do video games, especially violent video games, increase aggression and violent behaviors in its players, more importantly in children? Well, it depends on who you ask, what genre of video game is in question, as well as the rating of the video game. There are, of course, intended audiences, but if we're speaking honestly, especially for me and for my siblings, the rating of a video game never really stopped us from buying and playing it while we were growing up. There's so many ways to play video games at present. There's VR, online, portable. As technology evolves, so do video games, and so do the concerns for some people. As the animations, graphics, and visual integrity of video games progress, it's no doubt that lifelike and breathtaking images are more engaging and immersive for its players. But are these renderings as dangerous to young developing minds as many believe? One of the largest demographic to which the video game industry actively markets to are young people. Well, PETA surely thinks so. So who is or who are PETA? PETA are the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Their mission statement is to oppose speciesism, a human supremacist worldview. PETA focuses its attention on the four areas in which the largest numbers of animals suffer the most intensely for the longest periods of time. This is in laboratories, in the food industry, in the clothing trade, and in the entertainment business. We also work on a variety of other issues, including the cruel killing of rodents, birds, and other animals, who are often considered pests, air quotes, as well as cruelty to domesticated animals. Well, back in 2011, PETA launched one of its said protest campaigns against the video game and media house company Nintendo. Their first beef was with Nintendo's newly released Super Mario 3D Land, which featured Mario in a tanuki suit. Tanuki in Japanese mythology is a magical raccoon dog that is often mischievous and can transform. Another interesting fact about the tanuki or raccoon dog is that its fur is popularly used to make coats. Cultivating these pretty coats, however, is not a pretty process, as it does require skinning the raccoon dog while it is still alive. The People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals have a go at many different brands and franchises very persistently. This is all for the sake of raising awareness and educating the public on animal cruelty and abuse and its prominent perpetuation in media, clothing, shoe, and food industries. PETA's ambitions are usually to encourage the boycott of these companies until all manner of animal resources are either removed from their production or at least until it's removed from advertising. PETA is very aggressive in their campaigns. I'm going to be focusing on their first campaign against the Nintendo Mario franchise. And also I'm going to be discussing some of the sources that I found regarding this controversy. Source number 1. PETA's oversensitive campaign against Mario, ProQuest. This article was published in November 2011. Just from the title, we can tell that this author sides with defending the Mario franchise. The author makes the impression to the readers that PETA doesn't have very thick skin when it comes to Nintendo, and that their bone to pick with the Super Mario video game installment is blown way out of proportion. This installment features the popular video game hero and Italian plumber Mario wearing a tanuki skin. This is Japanese for raccoon dog skin. Source number 2. Nintendo responds to PETA, Mario Pro Fur claim, Eurogamer.net. This article was published in November 2011. In it, Nintendo maintains that their Super Mario franchise is whimsical and fantastical in nature. Nintendo also stresses that Mario taking on these forms and appearances are lighthearted transformations ranging from objects to creatures. They make no inferences in this article or ever that it is okay or fashionable to wear animal fur. Source number 3. Mario Kills Tanuki, PETA.org. This source is a link to a website domain that belongs to PETA. It is one other installment of their parody games. PETA responded with its own video made to compliment Nintendo's, but the Italian plumbing hero was drenched in blood as he wears a still bleeding raccoon skin suit. At the bottom of the screen, we see a start menu blinking to invite the website's visitor to play the Doomsday-like game, with mountains of apparently dead and bleeding raccoon dogs in the landscape. Instead of playing as Mario, we are a skinned tanuki, and our objective is chasing Mario, trying to get our skin and fur back from him, all while being able to dodge attacks and obstacles that stand in our way. PETA's second serving of beef is with another Nintendo release in the following year of 2012. That is the Pokemon Black and White series. I think their campaign against Pokemon was a bit more apparent to the general public, as the plot of the franchise is to capture rare and wild Pokemon and to train them to be skilled fighters. If your Pokemon are strong enough, and after winning a certain number of battles, you can become a Pokemon master. PETA likens this to dog and cockfighting. PETA was quick to launch its campaign against these Nintendo franchises not too long after each installment was released. And the motive is to warn the public that virtual vices, including animal cruelty, can translate easily into perpetuation of real-life vices as video games desensitize the mind to violence. Source number 4. PETA vs. Pokemon. Does the video game teach animal cruelty? The New Republic. This article was published in October 2012. The author does seem to lean a bit in PETA's favor by acknowledging that Pokemon's premise is that of dogfighting and cockfighting, but that it occurs in a fictional and virtual setting, and that strips the franchise of any real-life association to the mauling that real animals would experience in an actual dog or cockfight. Source number 5. PETA attacks Pokemon over animal abuse? ProQuest. This source, published in October 2012, takes a stand against PETA and has opinions that coincide with Nintendo franchise fans and Pokemon enthusiasts. It emphasizes the franchise as a fun, easy, laid-back, and very family-friendly company. Source number 6. Pokemon Black and White parody game. Pokemon Black and Blue. PETA.org. This website is a domain that belongs to PETA, and it is another parody game published by them. Its target is popular franchise Pokemon, which is also owned by Nintendo. This website's game is unlike others made by PETA, as it's not playable. A badly injured Pikachu does appear on the start menu with chains and bandages all over his body. So what was the impact of PETA's created controversy in these two campaigns? According to Google Trends, the pinnacle of PETA's internet relevancy was in 2009. This is due to the influenza virus, aka swine flu or H1N1 pandemic, that plagued late 2008 and all of 2009. But the gall to take up Nintendo may have some part in PETA's federal lawsuit against SeaWorld as the first case of its kind in 2011, the same year that they challenged Nintendo's Super Mario franchise. Many fans of the franchise were not coy about making their discontent known on the internet, with the organization attacking their favorite video game characters for being, ear quotes, abusers and killers, especially with Nintendo games ranking as some of the most family-friendly content in the gaming world. PETA would refute that it is exactly the childish art style of the content that makes it impressionable and appealing to children and younger audiences. Is there any real legitimacy to PETA's claims of these video games influencing its consumers toward a more innate tendency to aggression, violence, and abuse? In the scholarly article Cocooned from Crime, The Relationship Between Video Games and Crime, authored by Kevin McCaffrey and K. Ryan Proctor, is said to be a mixed bag, but being predominantly contradictory. It refutes the more commonly believed theories that aggressive and violent characters in video games make aggressive and violent players. This rebuttal emphasizes that there are many experimental psychological studies, but not many studies that examine the correlation between violent video game playing and crime at the macro level. Rather, that many studies that are conducted in lab environments grossly generalize the mild forms of aggression observed in experiments and use them to explain the reason for those severe violent crimes such as mass shootings. Other studies conclude that from a young age, humans are able to distinguish fact from fiction. Or some findings by Michael Ward at the county level revealed 3 things. 1. Gamers might develop violent tendencies for video games when unable to access them. 2. That violent video games reduces the appeal for real-world violence by placating desires for real-world violence. And number 3. Those who are predisposed to violent behavior become voluntarily incapacitated, playing violent video games, and are unable to commit crime if they're spending that time inside their house playing video games. So, Michael Ward's greatest strength in his study is that he did his best to analyze the correlation between crime on a county level and the density of video game stores in a county. He eliminated the bias of only incorporating the sales of violent video games, and he instead focused on video gaming's influence on competitiveness, aggression, and competitive aggression. Michael Ward concluded that there is a negative effect of video gaming on property crime rate. That is to say that there's a negative value effect of video gaming on property crime rate. Basically, that there's no substantial evidence to prove that violent video games have an effect on property crime rate.